Hello, and welcome to Chapter 22 of my TearRing Saga Champions of Utena low turn count playthrough. Now, Holmes is heading back to the town of Blard, but unfortunately in his absence, the evil Duke Ahab has sent a force to occupy it and wrest it from Lionheart's troops, so we need to rush down there and take control again. There are quite a few cutscenes going on as Ahab gets his army sorted and sent out to Blard, and we're going to get a little bit of payoff to those cutscenes in the next chapter. For now though, we're just going to deal with what we have in front of us. So this is the same map as it was in Chapter 15, but this time we're coming into it from the west rather than from the south, which changes how we approach the enemies in this map. Our goal is to defeat the boss, who is in the lower right corner of the map, more or less. Obviously, the solution to killing him as fast as possible is to send our highest movement unit, Narron, to go and kill him. And indeed we're going to do that, which is why Narron took out an armor slayer in the preparations here. There are a couple of ways to complete this map on one turn, and they both involve getting someone into Zachariah's range for an enemy phase 1 one-round KO. The easier way to do this is to use a 12-move unit like Lionel. He is capable of getting in range with just a dance from Plum, and you can see this in action in Laponia's tool-assisted speedrun. The alternative, which I probably should have done, is to dance Lyria in order to sing refresh Narron at the maximum extent of his movement range, which also allows him to fight the boss on turn 1, though that means he goes in without Empower. That clear would put Plum and Lyria in a pretty scary position, and in fact even this clear leaves Plum pretty exposed. So we are going to have Shigen move in and one-round KO this Lance Soldier with Dullahan in order to wall off all of the other enemies from reaching her. This of course leaves Shigen exposed, but obviously thanks to Dullahan, he is not going to have any problems surviving the enemy phase. Moving on, we have a new recruit on this map. This is Lionheart, who we saw before in Chapter 17 with Runan. But now that Holmes is back and ready to mount a final assault on Castle Salia, Lionheart has joined our army permanently. Lionheart is a nomadic trooper, so he's mounted and can use swords and bows, and his stats are pretty nice. He has Grassrunner as a class skill, which is of course pretty useless, but Lionheart also has Canto at base, which is nice, and he has Adept and Soul as well, and those add up to make him a pretty strong offensive presence who can occasionally heal himself off. So Lionheart is a pretty good unit, and we're going to be seeing a little bit of him in some upcoming maps. Looking at this, you might think that Lionheart would be a green unit to begin with, but he is in fact a blue unit from the beginning of this map, so I could have used his action to move him in a safer place if there was any concern at all about him dying here. Narron and Shigen between them do a pretty good job of their respective tasks, with Narron getting this pretty snazzy level here, and Shigen ending up dying only once and surviving the enemy phase with a single hit point, which is interesting. Unfortunately, because of the way the Armored Knights moved, we are not able to reach the boss with Narron at this point. We are going to have to enemy phase him as well. But Narron with the Armor Slayer is extremely reliable at killing the boss, much more reliable than Lionel with a crit lance would be, for example. Following this map, Zachariah is also going to join us, and he's a pretty typical heavily armored dude with high strength and defense stats. And he comes with Pavis and Urbanite as his skills, which makes him somewhat decent. However, unlike the unpromoted Armored Knights, he has no way to get out of his 4 base movement hole, and he is therefore not going to be all that useful outside of a little bit of walling here and there. One little interesting thing about Zachariah is that he has the highest base HP in the entire game at 50, when most other units don't really go beyond the 30s for base HP. Basically, Zachariah is everything you want out of a general. He's crazy durable, just held back by that low movement. And we've finished our grinding up of Lyria, so we're now coming up to the enemy phase. I did leave Shigen unhealed, so he is still exposed with only 1 HP, and I unequipped the Dullahan, so oops, but never mind, because he is going to be completely safe as Zachariah moves before any of the other combat-focused enemies. So Narron is easily able to cleave through Zachariah's bulk with his empowered up Armor Slayer, and in fact, he activates lethality in order to get a one-hit KO, which is pretty nice. And that lethality proc means that we complete this chapter in 2 turns. So Blard is now liberated and Zachariah has been talked into joining us by Lionheart, and we are now going to be moving on to face Ahab in the next map. This is the last of the 4 enemies surrounding Blard that I talked about so long ago, and it's nice to see that this old plot is finally being wrapped up. But with all that out of the way, that is all for this video, so I will see you next time.